What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. What is the future of Algorand? Many people have asked that question, and why wouldn't they? It's a completely valid question. I ask that question all the time. I'm always researching things on it. And the future of Algorand, that I found out through my research, really is all these little tiny puzzle pieces that seem insignificant by themselves, making for a much bigger picture. So, simply put, mathematically, Algorand, in 2030, the governance rewards are going to end. So mathematically, here is the basic equation. 1 million Algorand, 10,000 transactions per second, $200,000 per year. That's to say that in 2030, if you have 1 million Algorand and we have 10,000 transactions per second, then off the transaction fees, you will make $200,000 per year. That's pretty decent. But how do we get there? I mean, you can't just snap your fingers and say, poof, there we go, we've got 10,000 transactions per second. That's a lot of people using Algorand. That's a lot of things using Algorand. And that's the key to these puzzle pieces. You have one puzzle piece, and it has an average of 1,000 regular users. That's 1,000 transactions. That's not a lot. But you have two puzzle pieces, and they each have 1,000. Now that's 2,000. You double that, that's 4,000. You double that, that's 8,000. You double that, that's 16,000. Well, now we start talking. Now we start moving. And that's what we want. And this right here is an amazing move that is not getting the credit that it deserves. It is really doing something for people. It is really helping society. It is really actually going to change the financial sector in this section for the better. This is from the Algorand Foundation. Digital identity startup Flex ID receives funding from the Algorand Foundation. May 25th, 2022. Flex ID Technologies, which is based in Singapore, has signed a Simple Agreement for Equity, or a SAFE, S-A-F-E, with the Algorand Foundation. Now, what a SAFE is, or Simple Agreement for Equity, is Algorand is basically saying, we are going to give you the money today because we believe that you are going to explode, you are going to be big, and we want equity in the future. We don't need it today. You can take the money, do what you need, and in the future, when you have made it, that's when we will ask for equity. In a nutshell, that is a 50,000-foot view. Basically, it's to develop a centralized digital identity network that they want to make available in emerging markets where over, and get this, 1 billion people are thought to lack formal identification. This is the unbanked, ladies and gentlemen. These are the people who have issues joining the world market. These are third world countries. You see, if you can't join the world market, then you're forever going to be stifled down. Your market in your country is not going to be what it should be. Because in the world market, you need identification. That's how we prevent fraud. That's how we prevent scammers. Because if you are known, KYC, know your customer, if you are known, if they know who you are, there's much less likely a chance that you're even going to think of defrauding the market because, well, they know who you are. And also, if you decide to defraud the market anyways, well, they know who you are. The funding from Algorand Foundation comes under the impact category, which basically says that Flex ID is a necessary catalyst for global financial inclusion, and I agree. Let the world look and see what Algorand can do for the unbanked, and you want to talk about people flooding in. You want to talk about transactions per second in the future. Founded by Victor Mapunga, a Zimbabwean serial technology entrepreneur, Flex ID was born out of the founder's frustration with a banking system that excludes those without identity documents. And they don't have a choice. It's not the institutional's fault. When you go to the bank and they have KYC, know your customer, it's not the bank's fault. It's the government's. And it's not really a fault. It's a safeguard. And if you don't have ID, you can't take place in the world market. And the world market is where the real money is. Mapunga, just like over 400 million people in Africa that have no identity documents or IDs of any sort, failed to open a bank account due to laborious paperwork and the identity requirements. Now, I don't think people understand how big a deal this is. Africa has an intellectual property theft issue. And one of the reasons they have that issue is people do not have ID. They cannot open bank accounts. So imagine this. You have a poor farmer in Africa and he's feeding his family and he's working hard and he invents this thing that makes farming easier, faster, better, whatever. It doesn't matter. But he doesn't have ID. He can't open a bank account. So in order to sell his ID and feed his family off of his intellectual property, he has to bring in someone else. This someone else claims his invention as his own because, well, lack of ID. The farmer can't open his own bank account. He is beholden to other people. And that doesn't work. When money is involved, and trust me, I know this from personal experience, when money is involved, there is corruption. When more money is involved, there's more corruption. The more money, the more likelihood of corruption, and the deeper the corruption. That's just the way the world works. Algorand is seeking to help those who need this help the most. This is amazing news. Identity is a foundation to modern-day commerce. It is. Without an ID, one cannot participate in the economy of the world, not even at the most basic levels, such as access to basic telco services, mobile money, and banking, laments Mapungo, who is also the CEO of Flex ID. And it involves healthcare and education as well, because he also says without an ID, education and healthcare become extremely difficult to access. On the other hand, the shambolic national records further increase the cost of doing business. With Flex ID, even the informal sector can transition from an isolated view to a formalized economy. Farmers can easily access credits and inputs. Bam! World changing. Do you not understand how world changing this is? We can take a isolated sector and bring it onto the world stage where they can interact with the world stage. Inventions just don't come from developed countries. They don't come from super rich alone. They come from all kinds of walks of life, all kinds of classes of people, and everybody should have the opportunity to make it in this world. People shouldn't be stifled down and starving in Africa simply because they don't have access to banks. That is not correct. It's not the future of finance, not the future of finance I would like to take care of. Not the part of, take part of is what I meant to say. And also with IDs, it will end corruption to a degree. No, nothing will ever end corruption completely, but it will assist. Because evil does not propagate in the light. Evil propagates in the dark. You don't see advertisements in the local newspaper now seeking cult member 746. Please apply at 461 Beachfront Avenue, Bush number 2. That's just not the way life works. Evil propagates in the dark, unseen. The only time evil is seen is when it's gotten so big that it's too late, and then we have to act to stomp it down. Knowing your customer and ID is a way of shedding light on the market and telling those cockroaches that the lights are on, scamper away. And we want that. And we want the unbanked to be banked. Imagine a world where they look at Algorand and the things that it does, and it has taken an isolated sector and brought it into a formalized economy. My God, you want to talk about eyes on the market. You want to talk about rumors and talks about Algorand, and rumors and talks will bring people on board. Transactions per second. Because remember, on the most basic selfish levels. It's all about the simple mathematic equation. 1 million Algorand, 10,000 transactions per second, $200,000 per year. That's where we want to get. And that's where we're going. And it requires every single one of these puzzle pieces. And it just so happens that this particular puzzle piece does something amazing for society. Does something amazing for those people that need it the very most. Farmers can easily access credit and inputs, meaning they can get their goods to market faster. They can get their goods to market cheaper, which means the rest of the world can consume their goods faster and cheaper as well. It is good for the entire world. According to FlexID, the startup is essentially building a decentralized marketplace of people. They are going to connect the human beings with the proper business or healthcare or educational resources. This is amazing. I'm going to leave the link to this article in the description box below. I encourage you to peruse it at your leisure. At the bottom, it does have a link to FlexID and their website. I encourage you to view that as well. Algorand, changing the world for the better, while changing your wallet for the better at the same time. Why not? Why not kill two stones with one bird? I appreciate your time. You guys are amazing. I will see you on the next one.